going to explain how to play the Budapest Gambit with black. This is one of my favorite gambits because it's not actually technically a gambit, although in one line you do lose the pawn, but it is, you get sufficient counterplay in my opinion, and it's quite hard for white to defend, especially if they don't know what they're doing. Now this gambit starts after the moves d4, knight to f6, and then the move c4. So if you like to play the Nimzo Indian, this is similar, except you just gambit this pawn with the move e5. Now, there's really no good options for white except to take this pawn. If they try anything else, the position is going to be more or less equal. So after takes and then knight to g4, the whole point is to force white to defend this pawn they've just won. And while they're focused on this pawn, their position slowly will deteriorate and we will gain an advantage, hopefully. So after this, the main line is after knight to f3. However, if they play something weird like f4 after the move bishop to c5, you're actually just going to have an advantage in this game because white is going to be pretty much passive the whole time. And while you defend all your pieces, you're just going to overwhelm black's defenses, as there's not really much they could do in this position. You're just going to basically put your rook here, your queen can come here. If the bishop ever moves, something like this, black is already completely lost because if they move this pawn up, they just lose their knight. If they move their king over, well, now you're forking their queen and rook, and they can't take because of mate. And the position becomes very tricky, and white really shouldn't play into this. So let's look again at the main line. After takes, knight to g4 and knight to f3, the main move is to just attack this pawn with another piece, forcing white to make a hard decision. Do they want to protect this with their bishop, or do they really want to just give us the pawn back? Now, if they give us the pawn back, great. But if they play the bishop here, now we have to go bishop to b4 check. This forces white to make another decision. They can't block with either of these pieces because that would remove a defender from this pawn. So they have to move this knight unless they'd want to Botez Gambit, which they don't. So they'd have to move here or here. Now, first, let's look at what happens if they move their knight here. Now, this position, black should be pretty happy because we can just take this and basically destroy white's pawn structure, which is going to be a major weakness in the endgame. Now we can play a move like queen to e7, and after this, if white really wants to defend their pawn, they have to play queen to d5, and now we just let go of our pawn with the move f6. And after takes, if they don't take, we will win the pawn because now we have an additional piece attacking. So after takes, and the queen back, or whatever white plays basically, we can just slowly improve our position. And eventually, we're going to be the ones putting pressure. If they move their knight, we can move our knight back, attack their queen. It's basically, we're down a pawn, but their pawn structure is just ruined forever, and its weaknesses in the end game. So this position is fine for black. And now let's look at what happens if in this position, instead of moving the knight to c3, instead they move it here, not wanting to double their pawns. Well, now they're giving us back the pawn because after queen to e7, there's 3 attackers and there's no more defenders of this pawn that can happen. Now, white can easily fall into a trap after playing the natural looking move a3, because this move basically is a trap, because after knight takes, it seems as if, hey, this looks totally free. Knight to d3 is actually just checkmate. So they can't take your bishop if they were to play a3, and instead would have to go takes, and then still they can't take because this is still checkmate. And now here they'd be forced to take this, and now you have to be careful. Don't take this and actually lose your bishop. Make sure you take this with check first, and after your bishop is taken, now this position is basically equal because neither side really has any material advantage or positional advantage. So let's look at some other lines. After this, let's say they play a better move. Let's say they play, after queen to e7, let's say they play the best move, which is e3. Now we basically take the pawn anyways, and after trading, if they take with the bishop, There's some interesting lines with the move. After this, you could either move the bishop back, or you could take. Either one is really fine. But if you decide to take, there's some lines where you can play the move a5, move your rook up to a6, and then try to slide it over once white basically castles kingside. Then you can basically try to start an attack on the king side here. It's not necessary though. You could just play normally. So if they take with the knight instead, basically you trade pieces. If they ever try to attack this pawn, you can just take, play a move like d6, and basically the position is fine. White has the two bishops, but black is very solid. There's not many weaknesses in the position, and both sides will be just fine in the endgame. Thanks for watching the video. I will make a part 2 if this video gets 5 likes. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe.